So I'm pushing, and I kept thinking that I'm not doing this right. And my OB, he said, reach down and you can feel your baby's head. And I was like, holy, oh my gosh, I am pushing right. And I was so excited. I felt her head and it was amazing. And when I was pushing, I just felt like it was very spiritual for me. I'm a Christian, and it just felt like there was a very thin line between me and the universe at this time. I don't know how to explain it. It just felt like I was the only one who existed.
We are back this week with another birth story podcast episode for you guys. And with me today, I have Abby. With that, Abby, will you say hello to everybody and just tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, hi. So my name's Abby. I'm 27. I'm married to my husband, David, and he's 34. We're both in healthcare. I'm a stay-at-home mom now, but I used to work in the ICU, and he also still works in the ICU. So that's how we met. We have 2 golden retrievers, a Yorkie, a cat, 11 chickens. I'm pretty consider myself a pretty crunchy mom. My husband's not so crunchy. I garden, make sourdough, all that good stuff. And together we have our almost mid 3-month-old baby girl.
Yes, and you guys can't see her in this moment unless you will be watching the video, but she is a doll. She's so cute. I just want to hold her like you brought her on, and anyway, she's so cute.
Thank you.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about this pregnancy. Let's kind of dive in. Is this your first pregnancy?
Yes, it's my first pregnancy. It's pretty textbook. I really didn't have any symptoms leading up to my pregnancy. I took a test fully expecting it to be negative. It was positive. I felt great up until, I want to say, maybe 6-7 weeks, and then nausea hit me like a ton of bricks. My mom had really bad HG. So I was really scared that was and that was her entire pregnancy. So I was really scared that was gonna last through my entire pregnancy. I talked to my OB about it. I ended up losing about 20 pounds my first trimester. He was not concerned at all. I felt like I was withering away in his office, and he was like, yeah, it's totally normal. And I thought, okay, whatever you say. And then right around 13, 14 weeks, I felt immensely better. Like, second trimester was absolutely beautiful. Third trimester was absolutely beautiful. I really had no complaints. Aside from the first trimester, I loved being pregnant.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's really great. I too was the same. I had the nausea. So did you have any like vomiting or anything that came with that, or just really bad nausea?
I was vomiting probably at least like 10 times a day. And that's why I was like so super concerned that I was going to have the same problems as my mom. But like I said, my OB, he was like, yeah, I'm really not concerned. He told me to do like the B6 and Unisom, which I really didn't want to take any medications, but I was so desperate at that point. So that's what I did. And it did help. I mean, I was still sick, but, I made it through.
Yeah. Can we talk maybe a little bit about what you were able to keep down, if anything, or what helped as far as like food? And what was your nutrition like during your pregnancy, if you don't mind?
Yeah, my nutrition, it was good up until I started getting really sick. I tried my best to stay hydrated. It was, the smell of things would make me sick. So I tried my best to eat as much protein as I could. There really wasn't a whole lot that I could eat. I was actually really sick, and I kind of just lived on the couch for like 6-7 weeks. But after that, I was doing good. I could eat everything, and I tried to be as healthy as I possibly could.
Well, good. I mean, you do what you can, right? Especially that first trimester can be quite a beast. For some moms, it's a lot longer. So if you're a mom that's listening and you're like, first trimester, my butt, I'm sorry. But hopefully for the majority of mamas, yeah, it's around that 12 to 14 week mark, and they do start kind of turning a corner and feeling a little bit better. So that's good. So as far as your pregnancy goes, you said pretty textbook, easy going after that first trimester for the most part. Did you have any like funky things that came up? Any like moved due dates or anything because of an ultrasound? Any induction talks? Anything like that?
No, the only thing was I went to my 20-week anatomy scan, and they said, your placenta's super anterior, and matter of fact, it kind of looks like there may be a little bit of placenta previa going on. And so they labeled me as partial. And I deep down, I really wasn't concerned about it because I knew, being medical, my husband was medical, and everybody kept saying, like, your uterus is only going to grow and your placenta is only going to move up. And that's exactly what it did. And after that, nothing. There was no talks of induction. Um, my provider was super, super awesome. He was really chill. He said, I'm fine with you going to 41 weeks. After that, if you want to talk about induction, we can. But I never made it to 41 weeks, so we never had that issue.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm glad that you kind of shared that about placenta previa too, or like marking it partial. So in the earlier days, I used to think, I'm like, can the placenta kind of crawl around? Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean it's there and it'll move? And so what she's explaining is the placenta that's covering, like, headed over the cervix so that your baby would not be able to descend and be born through the vaginal canal. But as your uterus grows, it actually pulls up with it. And so especially when it's caught like on a 20-week anatomy scan, it's very common, or it's not uncommon, something for them to catch. And then it does move up, and the majority of time completely out of the way. So I love that you knew that and that you were like, I'm going to take heart knowing that these things are a variation of normal and you'll
Yeah.
probably be fine. So that's great.
Yeah.
You kind of talked a little bit about your provider. Sounds like you had an OB. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And how did you find this provider? And what was your relationship with him? Did you like vet him in any way or talk
I
about
really didn't. I really didn't. I've been with
Not a good
him
one.
I've been with him for a few years now. And so I really wanted a home birth. And my husband, he's a physician. He works in the ICU. And he was like, no, he was really scared. So we compromised and I said, okay, I'll do a hospital birth if we have a doula. And I did have a wonderful doula. I can share more about her a little bit later. But yeah, so he was just always really chill throughout my pregnancy. He never made me do anything I didn't want to do. I was adamant about the glucose drink. I did not want to do the one that they had. He said, we can do the fresh test. That's fine. So, I mean, he always asked me about vaginal exams if I wanted them. He never made me feel pressure to do anything. So he was wonderful. And he ended up being the one who was on call the day I delivered her. So that was wonderful that he was there for that.
Oh, wonderful. So he was in a
Yeah.
group practice, but he did end up being
Yes.
your provider. That's really cool.
Yes. Yeah,
And
it was awesome.
Is he who you wanted there then?
Yeah, he was really the only one I wanted there, and I really prayed hard about it, and yeah, we
So
ended
did
up
you get
getting
to
him.
meet the other providers then?
I did, yes, I did, and I wasn't super crazy about him. I felt like one of them in particular was going to give me a lot of pushback with my birth plan, but we never ran into that issue.
What were the things on your birth plan that you were concerned about, or we just kind of mention some of the things you had on your birth plan?
Yeah, so I wanted freedom to move around. I wanted to be able to eat, drink. I wanted intermittent monitoring. I'm trying to think of everything else I had on there. With her, I wanted to, labor naturally as long as I could by myself. I didn't want any interventions. I didn't want my water artificially broken, which I can talk more about that later because I did. And then what else did I have on there? I wanted delayed cord clamping, which we did do, thankfully. I don't see anything crazy that he would have disagreed with.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really wonderful. How about your husband? Can we dive into some partner support? So it sounds like he's a physician and he's got some thoughts about what he feels is safe and all of that kind of thing. What are some of the discussions you guys had, and how did he support you throughout your pregnancy?
He was very supportive throughout my entire pregnancy. Really, he just kept saying with home birth, like, what if something happens? And I kept saying, there's risk with everything that can happen in the hospital too, and midwives are very well trained. But he just was super nervous about it. And I know that this is my birth experience, but I wanted it to, it's also his birth experience too. And I wanted it to be relaxing and, as best as possible for him too. But I mean, other than that, he was super supportive through my pregnancy and labor as well.
That's wonderful. Can you think of something that was just the most helpful thing for either both of you, or something that he did for you that kind of helped you throughout your pregnancy?
Yeah, through pregnancy, I think it's maybe because he was medical, he was just super understanding of how sick I was. I mean, even when, my belly wasn't visible and, it doesn't look like I was pregnant, he understood what I was going through, and maybe he doesn't know exactly what I felt like, but he definitely sympathized, that's for sure.
That's awesome. Sometimes we really just need somebody to walk through the muck with us,
Yes, yes, and he
just
did.
be there with me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, let's talk about some preparation. How did you prepare? What were those daily things that you were doing weekly, monthly? Like, what did your preparation look like?
Yeah, so around 28 weeks, I didn't show until probably around 28 weeks. And so I did the 3 exercises about like from then. Um, and like we say exercises, they actually felt really good to me.
Yeah.
I did most of them in the shower. I did the deep squats in the shower, the pelvic tilts, and then the forward leaning inversions probably felt the best for me. That took so much pressure like off, like out of my hips, and oh, it helped a lot. And then probably around 35 weeks, I started red raspberry leaf tea. I actually really enjoyed the taste of it, so it wasn't like a chore for me. I did evening primrose oil starting at 37 weeks, and I think that's about all I did. Oh, I did do dates. That lasted about a week because then after that I was like super sick of them.
That's
But
fair.
other than yeah, that's pretty much all I did.
So for the evening primrose, did you insert vaginally? Did you take orally?
I
Did you
did.
do both?
Yeah, I did do the insertion method.
Okay, perfect. And that was just like one inserted vaginally before bed at night
Yep.
kind of thing?
Yep,
Cool.
exactly.
Hey, how about, so you did the 3 exercises. Did you guys practice any relaxation together, or did you do any of that on your own? Did you do any labor rehearsals?
Yeah, I
Anything where
did.
he was guiding you through things or talking to you?
Not so much him. I kind of just did that on my own, which is more so like the kind of person that I am. I really did a lot of it in the shower. I did a lot of relaxation techniques in the shower, a lot of birth affirmations. Um, yeah, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
The shower is sacred space.
Yes, it really is.
It
I
is
spent a lot
where
of time in there.
yeah, I get my morning going in there. All my good ideas come in there. It's like the one place where it's like nobody can talk or bother me. This is my space. I love that. Yeah. Did you listen to the podcast or anything like that?
Yes, I listened to the podcast before I even found out I was pregnant, and um, well before we even talked about trying, and I was, I had this mentality like, oh, it's fine, I'll just get the epidural, it's gonna be great, and then I started listening to the podcast, and I was like, I think I need to go unmedicated, and then
Yeah.
listened even more. I was like, heck yeah, I want to go unmedicated, so
Yes. Oh,
that's
I
where
love
we
that.
ended up.
Yeah. That describes like you and I share that very much. I wasn't listening
Yeah,
to my own podcast, but I was as soon as I started learning about birth, I was like,
yeah,
wait, that's how I want to do it. And then it was like, yes, that's what I'm
yeah.
going to do. This
I
is
was
so
excited about
cool.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there things that you shared with your husband? I know that's a question we get a lot from moms, like which podcasts or which topics or, which part of the course, whatever, like what was the most helpful or the things that you threw at him to say, I really need you to pay attention here? Or did you just summarize some things and you're like, I learned this, I want you to know it?
Yeah, I summarized a lot of it. I shared a lot of birth stories with and how like home births and birth centers, and even like the unmedicated hospital births as well. And he was very receptive to that. And then I think there was one episode specifically I made him listen to about partner support, and so he kind of learned about the counter pressure and different ways he can support me during labor, and he was actually pretty receptive to that. So I was excited.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. And you mentioned the things that you did for your body moving up. As you were getting closer to birth, were you doing like a lot of walking or anything physical?
Yeah, I did do a lot of walking. Like I said, I have chickens, so I spend a lot of time outside. I garden, so I was doing a lot of that too. So, and movement just kind of helped me stay less sore too. So it's like exercise for me too. So I did do a lot of that.
Wonderful. Okay, let's do it. Let's dive into your birth. Talk me through
Okay.
that first contraction all the way through the end.
All right. So I didn't really have much of a contraction or anything like that. I went to the night before, my husband and I, we were intimate together, and I put on a ton of clary sage oil because I learned about that in your podcast. And so I went to the bathroom. This was on her due date. Now it's 4 a.m. on her due date. And I went to the bathroom, and I kind of just felt like a little bit of mucus. And so I'm super tired. I flicked the lights on, and it was just a little bit of pink tinged. And like I'm taking pictures of it. I'm like trying to figure out like, am I seeing things, or could this be happening? And so I went back to sleep, and I woke back up around probably 8 in the morning, and it was definitely bloody show. So I texted my parents. I told them, I said, yeah, hey, I'm going to bring the dogs because I think I'm in labor. I texted my doula. She said, just keep me posted. And right around this time, it's 2025, January, and I live in Georgia. And here comes this like snowstorm.
Oh no.
And I know, everybody up north is like, oh, it's fine, but the state shuts down when we have a snowstorm here. So I'm trying to get all this stuff done because I knew that it was probably going to be, kind of a little bit of a chaos and everything. Um, so I bring my dogs to my parents' house, and I'm kind of just having like, I wouldn't call them contractions, kind of just cramping. And I just went about my day. And, my doula texts me off and on, how you feeling? And I told her, um, nothing serious right now, and I'll text you when I need you. And so that night I went to sleep, trying to get any bit of sleep I can. And like the contractions definitely kind of, I wouldn't say picked up, but they made themselves evident, I guess. Um, and so I texted my doula, and by this time I'm having like a lot of bloody show, and I can definitely tell things are picking up. And I texted her and I said, hey, like, I'm just letting you know, I think contractions are starting. And she said, all right, I'm actually probably just going to come because the snow. And I'm so glad she did because the interstate's closed the very next day. So, yeah. So she came. We just kind of hung out. Um, the next day, this will be the 22nd at this time. So the day after her due date. It was a little bit more uncomfortable, but the contractions weren't regular enough to even time them. So I thought maybe, I can just relax. And so I went to take a shower, and the shower completely stalled everything. Like it was hours that I didn't have any contractions. So, my midwife said, okay, let's do the mile circuit. And we did that twice, and that did help. Um, and so towards the end of the day, she said, let's just get some rest. And I'm thinking active labor is going to pick up in the middle of the night. And it definitely did. Probably around 11 p.m., they were getting like super regular. So much so that I was able to time them, and they were happening like every 3 minutes and for about an hour. So that being said, usually it's like the 3-1-1 rule. And my husband was like, do we need to go to the hospital? And I said, no, because like I'm still very much capable of like working through them. Um, so I just continued to labor at home, like in the bed and everything. So after that, I decided not to take a shower again because I didn't want it to stall. I just wanted it to keep going. And I'm trying to time contractions, but at this point, like timing them was getting really distracting. Like I was like looking at my phone, like, oh, let me make sure I hit the button at this time, and let me, make sure I hit it to stop it at the right time. So I said, I'm just gonna put the phone away and kind of just listen to my body. And that's what I did. Around 5 in the morning, they started getting like really regular and really intense, and I was really having to concentrate and work through them. My husband he was having to help me. My doula was helping me. So, I wanted to labor at home as much as possible, as long as possible. That being said, like with the snow, we had ice everywhere, and people, they were wrecking and everything. So I said, maybe we should just go to the hospital now, because I don't know. It's only 15 minutes away, but I wasn't sure like how long it would take to get there. I didn't want anything to get in our way. So we get there at 7 in the morning, and I was 3 centimeters dilated, and I think they want you to be a 4 to be admitted, but they went ahead and admitted me. I'm pretty sure they didn't want to send us back home through the snow. And like I said, it was my OB, so I was super thankful for that. And so we had breakfast. We kind of just chilled. I was just working through the contractions as best as I could, moving around. I do think, I know movement helps a lot of people with like keeping contractions going. And like, mind you, this is on the 23rd now. So I think I was so tired and my body was so tired that rest was actually really helping my contractions pick up. So, I mean, anytime I was in the bed, it was really starting to pick up. So, like I said, I'm starting to really get tired. My OB, he comes back and he checks me about 2 o'clock, and he said I was like a 5 or a 6. And I was not discouraged, but I was a little discouraged because, I really wanted an unmedicated birth, and I was starting to get a little scared that I wasn't going to have the energy to do it. Um, so he said, you know, baby is really, really low. I think if we broke your water, it would help, like really start moving things along. And like I said, it was on my birth plan that I did not want my water broken. Um, but I ultimately made the choice to do it. And I definitely made the right choice because not even a minute afterwards, it was just back to back contractions and things were really intense. I was still talking through them, but I had to pause and breathe. Um, and then, let's see, after that, my husband and my doula, they were giving me counter pressure, just kind of helping me work through things. I did have a TENS unit, and that really helped a lot. Um, and then probably around 4 o'clock, things really just started to become fuzzy for me. And I don't know if that was just because it was like Laborland or if it was because I was so exhausted. I don't know how to describe it. I felt like I wasn't really myself anymore. And I just, I was in so much pain at this point. I kind of just prayed out loud to God for him to help me. And my doula prayed with me, and that was really, really special. I really, really appreciate her doing that. And then shortly after that, I really wasn't talking anymore. I was kind of in between contractions having like these really, I honestly don't know if they were like really deep thoughts or if I was dreaming. I don't know. I think I might have been sleeping in between contractions. And at this time, my contractions were probably about maybe every 2 or 3 minutes apart, and they were really getting a lot longer too. And then around like 5:30, it's super intense. I'm really trying to breathe through them, and I'm yelling and making these noises. And all of that being said, I was looking outside my window, and it was so beautiful. The sun was setting, and I just had this like overwhelming sense of peace. And it kind of made me feel like I was having like an out of body experience because I felt like I wasn't really watching myself, or I felt like I was watching myself. I'm sorry. And I remember making these noises, and I remember thinking like, I don't know who that is. Like, that's not me. And I just kept repeating these birth affirmations that, my mom, she had me unmedicated, and if she can do it, I can do it. And, through all this intense pain, I just kept telling myself that, as long as I can breathe, if I'm breathing and my heart is beating, like I'm okay, and, women do this every day, and that I'm really nothing special. Women have done this since the dawn of time, and, they all get through it, and I can get through it. So I'm kind of like at this time, it's probably around 6 or 6:30. I'm kind of up and turned around in the bed, if that makes sense, if you could visualize that. And I start to kind of have these like bearing down urges. I don't know if I want to call them pushing urges just yet. And I started like making these different noises, and my doula said like, "Are you pushing?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't know if I'm pushing." And then maybe around 30 minutes later, it definitely started to feel like I was pushing, and it wasn't me. It was my body doing that. And and my husband, I remember he said specifically, "Are you pushing, babe?" And I was like, "I don't know. I think so." And so my doula said, let's try side laying with the peanut ball. And I have a love-hate relationship with the peanut ball because
That's fair.
it really picked things up for me, like instantly. I don't know what it was with that peanut ball, but it instantly helped things pick up. So around maybe 6:45, like 7, it got super intense, and I think it might have been transition. I don't know. I kept saying that I couldn't do this anymore and that I needed medication. And one of the things that I talked with my doula and my husband about, and I think I heard it on this podcast actually. It was like a third party consent, I think is what they called it, where I would have had to consent to medication, but also my husband and my doula would have had to consent to it. So if they thought that I was really close or that I really didn't need it, they said they were going to say no, that I didn't need pain medication. And I did ask. I did ask for pain medication. And my doula, she never had to answer because my husband said no. And he said, no, you're doing great. I really don't think you need it. And even my nurse was like, you're already doing this, you don't need it. And then right at this time, like I started having a lot of pressure in my butt. And I felt like I did need to push. So the nurse checked and she said I wasn't quite complete. She said maybe give it just like 20 minutes, and she thought that would give us enough time to, for the cervix to completely open. So around 7, they said that I could go ahead and push. And I'm pushing, and my OB, he's like, you know what, wait a minute, like you have a cervical lip. Maybe give it like 15 minutes. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I can't, I can't give it 15 minutes. So I'm laying there trying not to push. And then they come back maybe like 15 minutes later, because I told them, I said, I can't help it. And he said I could go ahead and push. And it felt so relieving to do that. It almost felt good to me. So I'm pushing, and I kept thinking that I'm not doing this right. And my OB, he said, reach down and you can feel your baby's head. And I was like, holy, oh my gosh, I am pushing right. And I was so excited. I felt her head and it was amazing. And when I was pushing, I just felt like it was very spiritual for me. I'm a Christian, and it just felt like there was a very thin line between me and the universe at this time. I don't know how to explain it. It just felt like I was the only one who existed. And, my husband, I told them I didn't want any coaching. I just wanted to be able to push and work with my body. And that's what, my husband and doula, they were supportive. It was pretty quiet, it was really peaceful. And then at 8:27, she was born. She cried right away, and we had that beautiful golden hour. Her cord was really short, and so they weren't able to put her on my chest. They put her on my belly. And I have this beautiful picture of her like reaching and grabbing my arm. And I absolutely love that picture. And then my doula, she helped me breastfeed right away. And so after that, my doula went home, and it was just me and my baby. And I think I did end up pushing on my back, which is not what I wanted, but I felt like, towards that final stage, I couldn't even hold myself up anymore. So I was on my back. I did end up getting a 2nd-degree tear, which wasn't a big deal. I worked through that. My placenta was delivered with no issues or anything like that. And wow, I felt absolutely amazing after she was born. I felt like I could literally do anything. It was amazing.
That's really neat. Thank you for sharing that. Can I ask a couple questions
Yes, of course.
about, like, as you worked through the labor, can you talk about how you handled contractions, like what you were doing and what your husband and doula were doing during that time?
Yeah, I kind of I was moving through them as much as I possibly could. I had this blanket that I had with me, and I was kind of just sitting up in the bed, and I was screaming into that blanket. And that was really the only way I could deal with it. And my doula, she said, that's totally okay. She said, just be as loud as you need to be, but keep it low. And so I kept those noises low, and that definitely helped. And then I had my TENS unit. That really helped. I was like, I was kind of like ripping off blankets because I was hot and cold, and I didn't know how I didn't know like how to feel. But other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Your doula, can we talk about her a little bit? So at
Yes.
what point did you decide to have a doula? It sounded like when you were talking with your husband and you wanted it to
Yeah.
be hospital and that was but did you interview several? Will you talk about kind of the process of finding a doula?
So no, I actually didn't interview a whole lot. I interviewed one, and I was just so taken by her. I absolutely just loved her, and her faith aligned with mine. I have permission to share her name if that's okay. Her name's Bethany, and she's with Renewed Strength, and she's here in Georgia. And yeah, so I went through my birth plan with her, and she was like, I love it, like this is great. And I asked her about like, would you be willing to say no to me if I asked for medications if you really didn't think I need it? And she was like, heck yeah. So yeah, she was absolutely perfect. I mean, she helped me with counter pressure. And my husband, he is a physician and he's very smart, but there's stuff that you just don't know about birth, and there was stuff that I was doing and stuff that I was saying that she was just kind of explaining to him, and that it was okay, and this is what's happening, and it's because it's this time, and etc. So she was very helpful with that, and I absolutely loved her.
That's wonderful. And it sounded like she stayed with you for some time as well.
She
Is that
did.
correct?
Yeah,
So
she
that's
stayed at my
great.
house with me, and then she stayed about 2 hours after her birth, and then she finally went home.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love doulas.
Hmm.
So cool. Do you have a minute to talk about your postpartum at all? Like what,
Yes.
like your immediate postpartum, what that was like for you, and then coming home? Because I know new moms are like, okay, we had the baby, and I feel so overwhelmed. Like, what is this like?
Yeah, so postpartum immediately was great. That first night in the hospital when everyone's asleep and it's just you and your baby is just so surreal. My doula helped me breastfeed right away, and since then we've exclusively nursed. So she latched right away, and we've done that ever since. When I got home, I had I think I did have some baby blues. That being said, I was the happiest I've ever been. And during the day, I was totally fine. Probably every day for 2 weeks at 6 p.m., I kid you not, it was 6 p.m., I would just like sob. And it wasn't because I was sad, it was because I was so happy. And I had this, beautiful baby, and I was just so sad slash happy that she wasn't going to be this little forever. And I, I think it was just like time and hormones, obviously, that was making me so upset. But other than that, I never had any postpartum depression. I didn't have any complications. I healed very well. My husband and I he had paternity leave for a month, and then he took another month off. So it was just us in this little postpartum bubble, and it was just so wonderful. Going back to the medication thing, I think it played a huge role in my postpartum experience because this was my dream birth, and I got my dream birth. It was unmedicated, it was beautiful, but I do think if my husband had caved, and if I had caved and let me, receive medication, whether it be IV push drugs or an epidural, I would have felt really sad. And I think I would have maybe, I don't want to say I would have had postpartum depression, but I would have been disappointed in myself because I knew that I could do this. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm glad that you shared that too because it's not about did we have the medication or not. It's not the like did I go through the pain or not. That's
Hmm.
not why we talk about medication and epidurals and all this stuff and
Right.
do we want to do that. There is something so much deeper to it than that. And some of it has to do with the power of women and experiencing that, going through the trial and making it to the other side and getting to stand on the top of the mountain and say, I did that.
Yeah.
And to realize how strong you are and the power that you have birthing these babies into the world. And it's not just to feel good. Like there is something to it. It is much deeper than that. That I
Yes.
think gets suppressed sometimes by medication when we just constantly offer and say, oh, it's okay. Oh, it's okay. And it's like,
Hmm.
yes, it is okay. And if you are in a lot of pain or for whatever reason you choose to do that, that's great. But also, you should know that you're strong enough to do it And if you
Yes.
and we are here to support you and it's okay. And I think going through something like that and getting to the other side, like you talked about postpartum depression and stuff, that's very real. It is very healing. It is very invigorating and wonderful to be able to go through something so hard, but know that
Yeah.
you did it and get to the other side. So I'm so glad that you shared that.
Yeah, and even now, I mean, I have this like huge boost of confidence, and it's been like, 3 months later, and I feel like I feel I feel beautiful because I did that, and I love my body even more because of what it did, and what it's still doing. I'm still feeding my baby, and oh man, it was just wonderful. I felt like I could, and I still feel like it. I feel like I can throw an elephant across a football field.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the labor really quick. Just a couple of things on that. Is there anything that you feel that you're like, I am so grateful that I knew this going into labor, or I just felt so prepared in this way that you would want to share with other moms?
When I listened to the podcast, I really listened to as much as I could about transition as I could because it scared me a little bit, and I wasn't sure like if I would know if I was in it, and in that moment I didn't really know if I was in transition. Looking back, I definitely think I was, but listening to the podcast, it did just kind of help me not be so scared of it, I guess. So I just, learning as much as you can about the process and just things to expect, what changes after your water breaks, like how's it going to feel, just stuff like that. I felt very prepared.
That's great. Was there anything that you wish you had more knowledge on or wish you would have spent more time preparing for?
I wish, not necessarily preparing, I wish I would have listened to my body a little bit better because I think if I had just listened to my body and not tried to move around as much during contractions, I think if I had just rested, I think things would have, I don't think I would have been in labor for like almost 3 days. I think it would have moved a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that's really important that you bring that up, that it is such an intuitive. You're just like during labor, it's just it's all intuition.
Yes.
But we bring in that knowledge, right? And of course, I'm talking all the time about movement and how important it is. Keep your body going,
Yeah.
just like you said, and to be able to listen to your body and say, like, yes, that is all really good information. And for my body in this moment right now, that's not what I need. So
Right.
I love that you shared that because, or even like it felt good pushing, laying on your back. Like, there's no
Yes.
wrong
Yeah.
way to do this,
Right.
I bring these things up or we talk about these things because you don't want a mom forced into something knowing that there's a better way. But it is so important to be able to listen to your body and kind of walk through
Yes.
the process. So
Hmm.
I love that you had that experience and that you're able to share that with other people. When it came to pushing for you, can you describe maybe how that felt and what you did to push? Pushing, it's one of those things like when women get to that point, it's like there's really no way. I mean, you can describe it all you want, just like labor, but until you're doing it, there's no perfect way to describe it. However, I do think hearing from a mom, especially that's done it recently, you know,
Yeah.
some of those sensations or what position or how whatever, you did with your body in order to be able to do that. Will you kind of describe that pushing a little bit more?
Yeah. It just felt like immense pressure, I guess is what I could describe it as. It honestly was nothing compared to the contractions. Absolutely nothing compared to the contractions. And maybe it's because I was fighting it a little bit that, when they finally said I could go ahead and push, it did feel good. But it just felt like pressure for me. And I remember even asking them, I was like, how am I going to know when I get to like the ring of fire? And then everybody's like, oh, you'll know. I do think I wish I would have maybe practiced not pushing so fast and so hard during that time though, because I think that's probably what did make me tear is I felt that burning sensation and I was like, I gotta push real hard. I think if I had just relaxed a little bit better, it would have helped. But yeah, pressure for me was what I could best describe it as, I
Yeah.
guess.
No, and that's good advice because yes, you hit that point of like that's really intense and you want to get past it quickly.
Yeah.
But yes, it's true. If you hit that point and you allow it to ease over, that might be a little bit easier. So that's good for moms to hear. I love to end these episodes with your best advice for moms and best advice for dads. So I would love to hear
Yeah.
that from you.
All right. So I spent a lot of my pregnancy kind of comparing myself to others, like my mom, like, oh, she was sick my whole pregnancy or her whole pregnancy with me, that might be me, or she had some postpartum depression. I thought maybe I would have postpartum depression, but really your experience is your own. I know we spend a lot of time expecting our pregnancies and births and postpartums to go a certain way, just what we've heard and seen on social media. But you really shouldn't do that. You should just kind of work with your body, work with your baby, and like I said, just know that your experience is your own. Have an open mind and really rely on your support system. And I mean, postpartum can be a beautiful time. You just got to remember to take care of yourself. And even if things didn't go how you thought they would go, or not according to plan, you still brought your baby into the world, and that's really all that mattered. And you're an incredible person for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. And then how about your best advice for dads?
Best advice for dads: definitely do as much research as you possibly can through about pregnancy, about birth, but especially about postpartum. I mean, we spend a lot of time, my husband and I, learning about birth and labor. Um, and I did have the postpartum course, and that was my favorite part. But I wish my husband would have been a little bit more familiar with like the baby blues and stuff like that, because he'd come upstairs and like, why are you crying? So just research as much as you can how to best help your wife, and because she's a new mom, and just give her grace.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect advice. Thank you, Abby. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing such a wonderful story. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.